Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like no matter what you did, you just couldn't change the outcome? Well, today we're going to unpack a really powerful psychological theory that explains exactly that feeling, and more importantly, what you can actually do about it.
So, to really get this, I want you to picture something super simple. You're walking into a dark room and you see a light switch on the wall. Naturally, you flip it up.
But nothing happens. The room stays dark. So you flip it again. Still nothing. You try a few more times, maybe the next day, maybe the day after that, but the result is always the same. Darkness. The connection between what you're doing and what happens is just gone.
So here's the real question, the one that gets to the heart of it all. At what point do you just stop flipping that switch? When do you finally learn that your effort in this one specific situation just doesn't matter? That feeling, right there, is exactly what we're talking about today.
Okay, so let's put a name to that feeling. What you're experiencing with that broken light switch is a concept called learned helplessness. It's that deep down feeling that nothing I do matters, and it's something we actually learn from our experiences.
The official definition is pretty much what we just described. It's a psychological state you get into after you've been through a bunch of situations where your actions had no effect. Now, the most important word here is learned. This is not a personality flaw. It's not something you're born with. It's a response your brain figures out based on the evidence it's getting from the world.
And this whole idea comes from the work of a psychologist named Martin Seligman way back in the late 1960s. He was running these experiments on how we respond to things that are completely out of our control, and he started noticing this pattern. What's really cool, though, is that later on he also developed the antidote, something he called learned optimism. We'll get to that.
So how does this actually happen to us? It's basically a three-step process. First, you've got the exposure. You keep facing that broken light switch over and over. Second, you develop an expectation. Your brain learns the rule that my actions don't work here. And third, and this is where it gets really dangerous, you start to generalize. You might start thinking, well, if I can't fix the light, I probably can't fix the leaky faucet either, and that belief starts to spread.
And this learned belief creates three big problems for us. On the motivational side, you just stop trying. You give up way faster. Cognitively, your brain actually has a harder time seeing new solutions. I mean, even if someone fixed the switch, you might not even bother to try it again. And then emotionally, it just leads to feeling discouraged, withdrawn, and kind of down.
But here's the million-dollar question, right? Why can two people go through the exact same bad situation, and one of them gives up completely while the other one keeps fighting? The answer, it turns out, has everything to do with how we explain failure to ourselves, our personal explanation style.
This is where it gets so interesting, because it's all about that little voice in your head. Seligman figured out that people who are most likely to feel helpless explain failures in three specific ways. They make it internal, this is my fault. They make it stable, it's always going to be like this. And they make it global. This failure means I'm a failure at everything. That combination right there is basically the perfect recipe for giving up.
All right, let's take this theory out of the lab and into the real world. Because this isn't just some abstract idea. This pattern shows up in our schools, at our jobs, in our relationships, you name it. Think about it. In school, it's the student who struggles with a few tests, decides they're just bad at math, and stops even trying. At work, it's the employee who pitches great ideas that always get shot down, so they just stop speaking up in meetings. It can even happen with our health. Someone tries a diet, it doesn't work right away, and they conclude, see, nothing works for me, and they quit.
So if you take one thing away, let it be this. The crucial point is that it's not the actual difficulty of this situation that makes us quit. It's our belief about how much control we have. That perception in your mind is, without a doubt, the real driver of your behavior.
Now, I know this has all sounded a little bit heavy, but here's the turn. This is the hopeful part. Because if helplessness can be learned, it can also be unlearned. So now, let's talk about the antidote. It's time to figure out how we flip that switch back on.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. It's about flipping the script in your head. Instead of an internal explanation, it's all my fault, you shift to an external one. The circumstances were tough. Instead of seeing it as stable, it's always going to be this way, you see it as temporary. This is just a setback. And instead of it being global, this ruins everything, you see it as specific. This was one bad event, but it doesn't define my whole life.
So how do you actually do this? Well, it's a three-step practice. First, in any tough situation, look for the one small thing you can control, even if it's just your attitude.
Second, you have to actively challenge that negative inner voice. When you hear yourself say, "It's all my fault," you have to stop and ask, "Wait, is that really true?" And third, you have to consciously reframe failure, not as the end of the road, but as a learning opportunity.
And that brings us to the core, empowering idea of this whole explainer. Your beliefs about control are more powerful than the reality of the difficulty. The second you can teach yourself and truly believe that your effort matters again, your motivation comes roaring back. It's that simple and that profound.
So let's end where we began. Think about that light switch. Is there a switch in your own life, at work, in a relationship, with a personal goal, that you've just stopped flipping? Now that you know how this works, ask yourself, where can you find the power to just try flipping it one more time?